Hi there guys, today's video we're going to have a look at drawing straight lines. So just to recap, we're using the formula that y equals mx plus c, where we know that m is the gradient and we know that the c is the y-intercept. Okay, so the gradient is how steep it is. If it's positive, it's going up. If it's negative, it's going down. And the y-intercept is where it's going to cross the y-axis. So what we're going to have a look at today is we're going to have a look at drawing some of these lines from an equation of a line. So copy this down as we go along, please. So let's say we have the equation that y is equal to 2x plus 1. So we know that the y value is equal to 2 times the x value plus 1. So what we're going to have to do to be able to draw these straight lines, I need to have coordinates to plot and then draw a straight line through. So the first thing we need to have to do is we have to draw a table of values. Now what a table of values is a table of x values. So we're going to give the x values of -2, -1, 0, 1 and 2. So all I've done is I've given the x coordinate or the x part in our equation a value. Alright, so this will then allow me to be able to find y. So all we're going to do is we're going to find y knowing these x values on the top row. So all we're going to do is substitute in turn the -2, the -1, the 0, the 1 and the 2 into the equation of a line. So 2x means 2 times x, so 2 times x, and in this example x is -2. So 2 times -2 is -4, plus 1 will give me -3. So when x is -2, y is -3. Now I'm going to substitute in the -1 value. So 2 times -1 is -2, plus 1 gives me -1. And now we're going to substitute in the 0. So 0 times 2 is 0, plus 1 is 1. And then the last two, substitute the 1 in. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. And then lastly, the 2 value, 2 times 2 is 4, plus the 1 is 5. So what this table of value gives us is it gives us coordinates. We have an x coordinate and a y coordinate. So we have -2, -3 as one coordinate. We have -1, -1 as another one. We have 0 and 1, 1 and 3, 2 and 5. So these are going to be the coordinates we're going to plot. So I'm going to put on an axis, and what I'd like to do is I'd like to pause the video here and copy this axis down. Make sure we label this as the y and the x axis. So pause the video here and copy this down. Okay, so what all we're going to do now is we're just simply going to plot these coordinates. So I have -2, -3, so the x coordinate comes first and go along to -2 and then down to -3. And we're just going to put a little mark there. Okay, I'm now going to do -1 and -1, so across to -1 and down to -1. I'm going to 0 and then 1. I'm going to have 1 and 3, and then 2 and 5. So here we've plotted our coordinates, and as you can see, we knew that it was a positive gradient. So it is going upwards. And as you can see, our y-intercept is +1, and you can see here on the graph that it has gone through the y-axis at +1. So all we're going to do now is we're going to take our ruler, we're going to line up the dots, and then we are just going to draw a straight line all the way through them. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to label the line the equation, which is y equals 2x plus 1. Okay, so pause the video here, make sure you've got this diagram down, and then we'll have a look at another one. So here we have another equation. It looks very similar to the last one we had, except this time our gradient is -2, but our y-intercept is still +1. So we should know, because our gradient is a -2, that the line is going to go down, but we're still going to go through the y-axis, okay, at +1. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to get our table of values. Every line you ever draw will have to have a table of values. In some questions, you're given the table of values. If you're not in this case, you need to make sure you've drawn it. So first thing we're going to do, we've got our x coordinates, and we're going to give our x value or x coordinates a value. So we're going to use -2 to 2. It may say -3 to 3, in which case you'd start at -3 and you end at 3. Now, this will now allow me to find our y values. So all we're going to do again is I'm going to substitute these x values into our equation. We'll start with -2. So we'll substitute -2 into the equation. So -2 times -2 will give me +4. Now +4, add the 1, will give me 5. We're now going to do -1 times -2, substitute it in, gives me +2, plus 1 is 3. Now 0, or anything times 0 is always 0, so -2 times 0 is 0, add the 1 is 1. And now we're going to do 1 times -2, which will give me -2, plus 1 will give me -1. And then lastly, +2 times -2 is -4, plus 1 gives me -3. So again, here we have our coordinates. We have -2 and 5. We have -1 and 3. We have 0 and 1. We have 1 and -1. And we have 2 and -3. So these are the coordinates that we are going to plot. So firstly, -2, -5. This is the one that we are going to plot first. So I'm going to go on the x-axis to -2 and then up to 5. So my first set I get is here. Okay. The next one I'm going to have is -1 and 3. So I'm going along the x-axis to -1, and then up to 3. We're now going to have 0 and 1. So to 0 on the x-axis, and then to 1. 1 and -1, so 1 on the x-axis, -1 on the y-axis. And then lastly, -2 and, 2 and -3. So here we have got our points. You can see that, as we said earlier, that it is going in a downwards direction, and you can see here that it's gone through the y-axis at +1. So all we're going to do is we're going to take our ruler, we're going to line the points up, and then we're going to draw a straight line through the points. Okay, if I can get the ruler in the right place. There we go. Oh. So you'll see in here it's slightly difficult on the computer, but you've managed to get through it okay. And the last thing we need to do is label it. So y equals -2x plus 1. So pause the video, please. Make sure you've got all of this down. So here's our next equation of a line. We have y equals -2 plus 3x. So the first thing you should notice is that it's not in the form that y equals mx plus c. So we're just going to change this so it is, we're going to rearrange this formula so it is y equals mx plus c. So we're going to end up with y equals 3x minus 2. Pause the video if you haven't already and make sure you have this down. So we have y equals 3x minus 2, and we're going to have to draw a straight line for this equation. So we're going to need a table of values. We can have an x value. I'm going to go from minus 1 up to 2 in this case, and this allows us then to find the y value. So all we're going to need to do is substitute in these x values into this equation to get our y value. So we're going to start with minus 1. So 3 times minus 1 will give me minus 3. Minus the 2 gives me minus 5. So 3 times 0, because we're going to substitute in the 0 now, give me 0. Minus 2 is minus 2. Substitute the 1 in. 3 times 1 is 3. Minus the 2, okay, is going to give us 1. And then lastly, the positive 2 value. So 3 times positive 2 is 6. Minus the 2 gives us 4. So again, pause the video, make sure we have this down. And I'm just going to write out the coordinates. So we have minus 1, minus 5, 0, minus 2, 1 and 1, and 2 and 4. So all we're going to do now is we're just going to plot these coordinates on our axis. So starting with minus 1 and minus 5, we go along to minus 1, down to minus 5, which is here. We're now going to have 0 and minus 2. So we go to 0 and then down to minus 2. We've now got 1 and 1. So it's 1 and 1 there. And then lastly, we have 2 and 4. So it's 2 and 4. So we can see here that our gradient is positive, which means our line is going up, which it is. And we have a y-intercept of minus 2. And here you can see that it has gone through the y-axis at minus 2. So all we're going to do now is we just need to line these up and then draw a straight line all the way through them and then label it at the end. Okay, just a couple of things to have a look at. If, for example, you've drawn this, you've got the line, let's take this line away for a second. Let's say that you've got this pointed out here and one of your points is over here, let's say. Okay, this should raise alarm bells because it's not in a straight line with the rest of them. Okay, don't leave it like this. We're drawing straight lines, they have to be straight. If you have something over here, one of two things has probably gone wrong. One is that you have either, in your table of values, one of these is not correct. You've substituted it wrong. Or if you had, for example, the coordinates of 2, 4, you may have plotted them around the other way and put 4, 2. Okay, so just check that one. Make sure you have paused the video and you have got all these copied down, and then I'll put some questions on for you. So here are 4 questions that I'd like you to draw out. The axis you need to have is also there. Make sure you've got copied out the equation of the line, the table of values. You need to fill that in first and then draw the lines. Once you've done that, there is a worksheet on the Google Classroom you need to complete as well. Make sure when you're done you are uploading a picture of your work when you hand it in.